Nowadays, it's so easy to fall into the trap of comparison, especially with social media, or even worse, you start to feel envious of a friend or a friend you once knew because you're seeing their life and it seems like they have it all together. But nobody talks about how to actually deal with negative emotions. And we are going to cover it all today. One of the things that I struggled with for a very long time was learning how to navigate negative emotions. I grew up in a household where that was never talked about. When we don't learn how to healthily deal with negative emotions, it turns into things like envy, anger, resentment, judging others, projecting negativity onto each other, and it just becomes a loop. I fell into that trap because I just didn't know any better. And unless we're actively working to heal through negative emotions, we're just running off an automatic subconscious system. Question the things you feel and the meaning we give to them. This is a huge part of glowing up in your life. If we let our negative emotions build up inside, it just becomes so much bigger than it needs to be. Guess whose life is going to become harder because of that? Ourselves. So it's not only in our best interest to learn how to properly deal with negative emotions, but it's also just going to make life so much better for those around you. If you're new to the channel, hi, I'm Krizia, and I'm so happy that you're here. If you love glowing up from the inside out, then you may want to consider subscribing. If anyone knows negative emotions, it's me. I still deal with it. I'm not gonna lie and say that I've gotten to a point where I don't feel negative emotions, because that would be inhuman. We all are gonna feel negative emotions, no matter how wise we become and how much older we get. I don't know anyone who doesn't deal with negative emotions. Even monks deal with negative emotions still. And how do I know this? Because I have studied and watched so many interviews that you have no idea how much I've really tried to make sense out of negative emotions and understand them. So when I tell you, I know other people deal with them, I know. But I do advise, of course, disclaimer, if you're someone who is dealing with very serious levels of negative emotions or really dark thoughts, please don't take that lightly. Please go seek professional help. I am not a professional, but I'm just giving you the things that I've found to work for me. The very first step to dealing with negative emotions is learning how to identify them and acknowledge them. This comes with a lot of practice and self-awareness. When you feel a negative emotion, I really encourage you to pause for a moment, and whatever is the source of that negative emotion, try to distance yourself from it. So if it's a person, if you're on social media and that triggered something, close the app, put your phone away. Like, try to separate yourself from the source as soon as possible so you can actually pause. If you just keep feeding that thought, it's only going to get bigger and bigger, and it's going to internalize deeper in yourself. So what I found to be helpful is when I feel it, when I feel the emotion, pause, acknowledge it. Like, I've now gotten to a point where I say, thank you, anger. You can leave now, in my head, and that makes it seem like you're a crazy person, but that's really what works. It's just a thought. And you have to remember that negative emotions, just like any emotion, doesn't have meaning unless you give it meaning. So that is good news, because you hold the power to either give it power or not, to give it meaning or not. If you feel envy, in that very moment of feeling it, if you paused, acknowledged it, and used it to redirect your energy into something else, you can start to redefine that emotion altogether. Envy is a popular one, right? Acknowledge it and just say, that's envy. I recognize this feeling. It's starting to come up. What can I do about this feeling? I can either keep scrolling, I can keep feeding it, or I can just switch up my focus. That's claiming your power back. You don't have to assign a dark negative meaning to these emotions that we call negative. The only reason why it's negative is because we've assigned a meaning to it. If we decided envy could be nothing more than a compass showing us what it is we actually want, because in reality, envy is a sign that you see something that you want. So instead of feeding it and becoming the victim to it, look at it as, this is my internal compass telling me that I want that. You can use that as inspiration instead. That's why they say our mind is so powerful. It has everything to do with how we view things, all within our control. But we've just become so conditioned. We don't have to give envy this power over us to then ruin our day, to then make us resent someone. Whew, that was a lot. The next most important thing, now it's time to allow yourself to feel it. I'm not trying to erase and eliminate negative emotions, right? A really common negative emotion is anger. If we can heal in the earlier stages of anger, there would be so much less craziness in the world. Because I've seen it firsthand so much, I've really been intrigued by anger. Anger is usually a mask for a bigger, deeper feeling like sadness or hurt. The emotion mask. Because anger is usually just a mask, we can really ask ourselves, what's the root? Where is it actually coming from? It's not easy to just say, stop being angry. Like that doesn't resonate because there's so much more layers underneath the anger. Peel back the layers. Really sit there and try to understand, what is it trying to tell you? This is how I've become so intuitive now, where if I feel angry, I try to give myself space to breathe. Anger can become the hardest to control if you just keep letting it build up in the moment. Just take a couple deep breaths, go for a walk. It's not easy, I know. We have to unlearn our habits around these emotions. It's basically just a habit. When we feel anger, how we react in anger, it's usually a practiced habit. So that's why it seems uncontrollable sometimes, where if someone cuts you off, you're instantly annoyed, you're instantly angry. But that's because we've trained ourselves to have that reaction over time. And so what's going to happen is we have to untrain ourselves by replacing our immediate reaction to these emotions with something different. Eventually, that new habit becomes your new norm. When someone cuts you off and you get so angry, what is the first thing that you do? You start cussing, maybe you cut them off again, you react. And even though a lot of us think it's an instant reaction, it's really not. We have a moment to choose what we want to do in that moment. We actually have the power to make a different choice. It's just because we're so used to reacting in the same ways that we think we don't have a choice. But I think once we understand that concept, it's so much easier to choose a different action in that moment. Remember, it's not the emotion itself that's bad. It's what you do with that emotion that makes the difference. I know how hard we can all be on ourselves. I am very guilty of this myself. If we are telling ourselves, oh, you're not good enough. Oh, you need to lose weight. Oh, you shouldn't have done that. That's when sadness can creep in. That's why self-compassion is so important. Remember, when you're feeling down, treat yourself with the same compassion you would treat a friend who was dealing with the same exact thoughts and the same exact emotions. We're often a better friend to others than we are to ourselves, but that ends today. It was as simple as giving myself permission to fully feel the things that I was feeling. A good cry, letting it out. I really feel like during those times is what built my character to now have more empathy for other people. I really encourage you to take a look at the negative emotions that seem to hold the most power over you and start to reassign a new meaning to them. Give yourself grace, give yourself permission to feel those feelings, but also changing your mindset to want to learn something from every situation. It's through those negative emotions that we can make the most change in our lives. That feeling is something we don't want to feel so bad that if we just redirected our energy and used it towards something good, it can actually fuel us even stronger into our own goals and dreams. Of course, learning how to express your emotions is another way to healthily deal with them. I think a lot of times we internalize everything because we don't have a healthy outlet, and gossip doesn't count. Journaling is a very good, healthy outlet. Nobody has to see your notes, but you can at least let your thoughts out. Another thing is if you have someone that you really trust in your life that is self-aware and emotionally mature enough to handle these conversations without being toxic or biased, you know, if there's someone that you can feel like you can genuinely open up to, I really encourage that, you know, but of course, choose your people wisely. It can actually do more harm than good. By acknowledging, feeling, expressing, and then refocusing your attention into something more positive, you can turn these really tough emotions into opportunities for growth. Every emotion you feel is valid, and every emotion has something to teach you. Okay, if you made it to the end, leave a comment below that says love. I want to spread some love today. Subscribe and share it with someone who you think needs to hear this message today. By the way, I'm always going to leave links to my makeup outfit pieces I'm wearing in my videos in my description box, so make sure to check that out if you want to see those. I thank you always for being here, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.